What if I told you that today's top billionaires aren't even in the same league as the richest people who ever lived? We hear names like Musk, Bezos, and Arnault, and we see fortunes that feel impossibly huge. But honestly, they're just statistical noise compared to the real titans of history. We're talking about a Roman emperor who owned an entire country as his personal piggy bank, and a West African king whose wealth was described as simply incomprehensible. A handful of figures throughout time built fortunes so massive they completely break our modern scale. But here's the real story. It's not just about the gold, the land, or the armies. These men, separated by centuries, continents, and cultures, were all connected by one powerful idea. A shared secret that let them bend the world to their will and build empires of wealth. And it has nothing to do with working harder, being a genius, or even being born into the right family. It's something far more fundamental. A secret that once you understand it will change how you see wealth and power forever. We're trained to think of wealth as money, a number in a bank account. But for the richest people in history, money was just a tool. It was a side effect of what they were truly after. The real secret, the mindset they all shared, was an obsession with achieving absolute control. And not just control over their own lives, I mean control over entire systems. They didn't want to just participate in the economy. They wanted to be the economy. They didn't want to own a successful business. They wanted to own the entire industry from the ground up. This wasn't just ambition, it was a complete shift in perspective. While everyone else was busy playing the game, these guys wanted to own the board, the pieces, and the rulebook. Let's start with our first titan, the man often called the wealthiest person in all of history. Our first figure is one, Mansa Musa, the 14th century emperor of Mali. At the time, the Mali Empire was the world's #1 producer of gold. And Mansa Musa didn't just tax the gold trade. He was the gold trade. His personal fortune and his empire's output were one and the same. He had direct, total control over the most valuable resource on the planet. Want proof? Look no further than his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. This wasn't just a parade, it was a moving treasury. He reportedly traveled with 60,000 men, with camels carrying hundreds of pounds of pure gold. When he passed through Cairo, he didn't just spend a little cash. He gave away so much gold that he single-handedly caused a currency crisis and wrecked the Egyptian economy with inflation for over a decade. That's what real control looks like. It's not just having wealth. It's having so much of a critical resource that your personal decisions can make or break entire economies. He didn't have a monopoly on a product. He had a monopoly on money itself. You see this same principle pop up again and again. Fast forward a few centuries to our second figure, 2, John D. Rockefeller. As the world began to run on oil, Rockefeller decided he was going to be the one to control it. His company, Standard Oil, didn't just drill for oil, it refined it, transported it, and sold it. Through brutal efficiency and buying out anyone in his way, he built a near-total monopoly. By the 1880s, Standard Oil controlled around 90% of America's oil. He didn't just own the most successful oil company. For all practical purposes, he was the oil industry. He controlled the resource that was becoming the lifeblood of the modern world. But what happens when the resource you control isn't something you can hold? What if it's the system of power itself? This brings us to our third historical giant, 3 Augustus Caesar, the first Roman emperor. Trying to calculate his wealth is tricky because the line between his personal bank account and the state's treasury, well, there was no line. The Roman Empire made up about 30% of the entire world's economy, and Augustus had the final say over all of it. His personal wealth was estimated to be 1/5 of his empire's entire economy. After conquering Egypt, he literally owned the country, which meant he controlled its massive grain supply, the very food needed to feed Rome. He didn't just collect taxes, he was the state. When you can print the money, own the farms that feed the people, and command the armies, You're not just playing in the system, you are the system. We see this same pattern with leaders like our fourth and fifth figures. 4. Emperor Shenzong of 11th century China, and 5. Akbar the Great in India. Both ruled over empires that represented a giant slice of the world's GDP. They grew rich by building incredibly efficient, centralized governments that controlled all trade, farming, and taxes. Their genius was in creating and perfecting systems of state control that funneled that wealth straight to the top. It even applies to someone you've probably never heard of, our sixth man on the list. 6. Alan Rufus, a companion of William the Conqueror. His secret? He picked the right side in a hostile takeover. As a reward for helping with the Norman invasion of England, Rufus was given huge chunks of land. At the time, his fortune was equal to 7% of England's entire GDP. He didn't build a business. He was given a piece of the system for helping put a new guy in charge. It's a pattern that's pretty hard to ignore, isn't it? From gold to oil to the machinery of government itself, the path to history-making wealth wasn't about earning money. It was about seizing control. If this way of looking at power is blowing your mind, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we're about to get to the modern era. And let me know in the comments which of these figures impresses you the most. As the world industrialized, the meaning of control started to change. It wasn't just about land or gold anymore. It was about controlling the new highways of commerce and technology. Our seventh figure, 7. Cornelius Vanderbilt understood this better than anyone. He started with just one ferry boat in New York Harbor, but he didn't see himself as a boat captain. He saw a chance to control how people and goods moved. He aggressively expanded, slashed prices to crush his competitors, and built a shipping empire. But then, a new technology appeared that threatened to make his boats obsolete: the railroad. Did Vanderbilt fight it? He pivoted. He sold all his shipping interests and went all in on railroads. He understood the secret wasn't about controlling boats, it was about controlling transportation. He bought up small rail lines, created a network that dominated the American Northeast, and essentially became the gatekeeper for American commerce. If you wanted to ship goods, you had to pay Vanderbilt. He controlled the network. And that brings us to our 8th titan of industry. 8. Andrew Carnegie, the King of Steel. Carnegie was a master of what we now call vertical integration. He didn't just want to make steel. He wanted to control every single step of making it. He owned the iron mines, the coal fields, the ships and trains that moved the materials, and of course, the steel mills. This obsession with control allowed him to cut his costs so low that no one could compete. He adopted new technology faster than anyone, making his position even stronger. At his peak, Carnegie wasn't just the biggest player in the steel market. He was the steel market. When he sold his company in 1901, it was the largest business deal the world had ever seen, creating a fortune built on total, end-to-end control of an industry. So what's the one secret that connects a Roman emperor, an African king, and an American industrialist? It's what I call the monopoly mindset. And I'm not just talking about the board game or a monopoly in the legal sense. This is a way of looking at the world that sees past simple competition and aims for total domination of a system. It doesn't matter if that system is a natural resource, a political empire, a shipping network, or a new technology. The goal is always the same: gain so much control that you get to set the rules for everyone else. These men didn't ask, "How can I win the game?" They asked, "How can I own the game?" Mansa Musa didn't just sell gold, he controlled the world's supply. Augustus Caesar didn't just govern Rome, he personally owned its most vital economic assets. Rockefeller didn't just sell oil, he controlled the entire infrastructure the country ran on. Carnegie and Vanderbilt didn't just run big companies, they turned entire industries into their own personal kingdoms. They were always looking for the leverage point in any system, and then they would pour all their energy into seizing it completely. Now let's be clear. The world of these men was a very different place. The strategies of emperors and robber barons are not a roadmap for today. Many of these fortunes were built using conquest, exploitation, and ruthless tactics that are and should be illegal now. But the mindset behind it all still holds a powerful lesson. The secret to achieving huge results isn't just about working hard or coming up with a good idea. It's about understanding systems. It's about finding the critical point of control and focusing all your effort right there. You might not be trying to monopolize the world's steel industry or become a Roman emperor, but in your own career, your business, or even your investments, you can ask the same kind of question. What's the most important high-leverage part of this system? Where's the bottleneck that everyone else depends on? Instead of just trying to compete with everyone else, how can you control a unique part of the process? The wealthiest men in history weren't just rich, they were architects of control. They saw the world not as a level playing field, but as a system of levers to be pulled. And by figuring out where those levers were, they lifted themselves to a level of wealth and power that we still talk about today.